the king of the temple's tomb. Don't let him rise and make a fool of you. Let your soul feel whole and refuse to let him in. Let your light shine bright and learn to see again.
This is your place for all things Detroit Red Wings and all things Chicago Blackhawks. This is the Stick Blade Podcast with your hosts, Jordan Linscott, David Barnhouse, Nick LePage, and Tim Stompanato. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Stick Blade Podcast. It's your place for all things Detroit Red Wings and Chicago Blackhawks, as well as news around the NHL. I'm your host for tonight, Jordan Linscott, for my co-hosts, David Barnhouse and Tim Stompanato. Welcome to the show. On tonight's show, we're going to talk about all things Red Wings, all things Hawks. In particular, for the Wings, we're going to be talking about the fact that Jonathan Berggren and Simon Edvinsson are playing for the AHL All-Star game. The Detroit Red Wings are back on the upswing. They just swept the Cal road trip, the first time since 2008, fun enough. Also, the fact that Nate Danielson, I would say probably most important or most valuable center prospect right now, their pipeline, gets traded from the Brandon Wheat Kings to the Portland Winterhawks. So that's a bit of a draft change for him. But that's kind of going to be it for the Wings. And then we move on to the Hawks. I mean, Tim, the Hawks had a couple pieces to talk about this week as well. I mean, a couple players out, a couple players in, and then some growth from the guys in your guys' farm system who about in the week might not be as far off from being a competitive club I think they may have been.
I mean, yeah, 100%. I mean, there's a lot going on for the Hawks right now. None of it involves winning, but all of it involves growth. So we're going to be talking about a lot of different pieces of where the rebuild is at. We've got Seth Jones coming back from injured reserve, but also with that, a priority shifting with the way the D-men are being played. We've got a Foligno extension we're going to talk about. Bedard's still fighting to come back, but he's still out. And we've had our prospects having an absolutely banner weekend. So we're going to be diving all into that. Excited to start breaking things down one by one with you guys.
So I kind of want to start with the Wings because I feel like the Hawks is kind of going to be more long-term speaking.
Sure, because we don't have anything good going for us right now. I hear it, Jordan. You want to talk about the present and we're the future. I get it.
I mean, the Wings are starting to enter the winning period, but I do think the Hawks aren't far from what people think.
I agree, and that's what we'll be touching on. So please, by all means, let the Wings go first.
So I mentioned it already. The Detroit Red Wings, they swept the California road trip where they played the San Jose Sharks, the LA Kings, and the Anaheim Ducks. The first time since 2008, this team they look like they're finally coming out of the absolute slump that they were in for all of December. I feel good about this because San Jose and Anaheim clubs, because I don't think they are, to be honest. But the fact that they beat the LA Kings comfortably against that team, that's something that we noted. It looks like this team finally started to find their groove again now, and it does. They've gotten good goaltending from LA in this past stretch.
Yeah, I would agree.
Takeaway, obviously the team scoring again, which helps.
Yep, the team scoring. We finally broke the streak of not being able to win a game unless we score, 4+ goals?
Oh, yeah.
4 goal.
Yeah, we finally broke that streak during that road trip. But yeah, goaltending is a big part of it. Alex Lyon is back healthy, and he's playing like the definitive number one that we kind of thought before the injuries happened that he was going to step up and take from Husso. A lot of those games we won, yes, we scored goals, but he's the one that kept us in those games and really made a lot of remarkable saves. We lost against Edmonton, a hot Edmonton, to say the least. Yeah. That was on an 8-game win streak, and we could have beaten them. We hit the post a lot, but Lyon had an amazing save against probably the best player in the game, Connor McDavid, where I was absolutely shocked. And I think McDavid the camera showed him after the play, before they went to commercial, and his face was like, wow. because like it was just like a glove save that like split second it had been a goal. But goaltending has made a difference. Alex Lyon's healthy. Unfortunately, he's still got James Reimer sitting behind him, but hopefully he keeps playing the way he's playing, which is unfortunate because we're playing a division rival who's struggling and tonight, but most likely Reimer's going to be the guy in net. But Toronto's also putting Samsonov in the net.
Yeah, and we talked about this before, but Toronto they're a pure offense team. If you can exploit their defensive weaknesses, you can very much beat that team.
Yep.
Could you not also say the same thing about the Wings right
now? Yeah, it's going to be an offensive shootout.
Watch it.
This is going to be a barn burner of a game. And no, I think it's huge that you've got Alex Lyon back. I mean, we've been talking about this. The team has absolutely felt the absence of Lyon. And I think it's great, honestly. You've got him for this year locked up as your number one, and you're going to ruin him so he won't be good next year. But if you can get everything you can out of him this year, you can find whoever replaces him next year now. So that's going to be key.
Yep.
Detroit's going to be like the team where if you're a goaltender and you want to get a good contract, come here. We'll give you 1 year of quality showing. Then we'll trade you somewhere else where you can get paid.
That's it. 1 year deals only. Anything more than that, you're going to expire.
Don't stay here more than 2 years, goalies. Don't do it.
But no, all jokes aside, actually, the game between Toronto and Detroit's going to be interesting because they're both high-scoring offense teams right now. I would give Detroit the edge, though, on defense at this time, based on the comparisons between the two. I think the pure offensive talent in Toronto is arguably a little bit. I would give them the edge there. I mean, geez, Matthew Marner's obviously. But you've got the edge on defense, and right now you've got the edge on goaltending. I think that's going to be a really cool, evenly matched game that's going to allow both teams to highlight their skills.
It's such an interesting one for Toronto because it's offense only with that club. They want 6 or 7 goals every game.
Yep.
But that's how they're built. That's literally their design, which is not sustainable, but here we are.
Yeah.
Tonight, I'm hoping it's a cool shootout for sure. That's all I'm going to say about the game.
I agree with you.
I hope it's a cool shootout. We can move on, though. Obviously, we talked about the defense still needing work. That's something that I'm going to tie it into a segment later with the Wings at the end.
Excited.
The next piece of news to talk about, Nate Danielson, he got traded from the Brandon Wheat Kings to the Portland Winterhawks to play. I think that this is a step in the positive direction for him. He's going to move to a higher scoring club, going to get more of an offensive chance to develop his game there. He was already at, I think, almost a point per game player with the Wheat Kings, and that was when, I don't want to say everyone around him wasn't good, but he was very much the star on that club. That's how I would politely say it. He was the star on the Brandon Wheat Kings.
Oh, he most definitely was for sure. And, the news broke to us in a rather nerve-wracking way with our good other co-host, Nick, who's not currently here, saying, "Oh, Nate Danielson's a Hawk." And I'm just like, wait. And I was doing that like Zach Galifianakis math gift. I'm like, did we trade him and a bunch of picks for Connor Bedard? What's going on? No. And then I was like, I Googled it and I was like, oh, he's a Snowhawk. Okay.
Winterhawks, Snowhawk. Come on, David.
Snowhawk.
Know your WHL teams, my man.
Sorry, you got the Wheat Kings and the
You don't have
Winterhawks.
every single major junior league memorized. I don't understand it.
Got the Flint Firebirds.
There you go. You got them. We'll
Savannah
have a competition one of these days. But no, this is going to be exciting for Danielson to play on a high-scoring team that I think he'll still be or the star on the team. But now the complementary cast that he's going to have, that's going to allow him to play in a lot of different situations and get different matchups. So that's super exciting.
Yep.
Good for his development, too. Again, you don't want to get too comfortable with one offense. Being able to change things up and adapt to different coaching styles. I feel like that's something we don't talk about enough, is that sometimes in junior leagues, these guys will stay, even with college or whatever, they'll stay with the same group of players, the same coaching staff, the same trainers throughout their growth until they get to their NHL team. A guy that goes through a trade like this has to completely uproot, move over, develop a new chemistry with a new supporting cast, develop that chemistry with trainers who have different theories and methodologies. This is really, really cool to get to see somebody grow and adapt with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I feel like the last piece of Wings news I want to talk about before we move on. Obviously, Jonathan Berggren and Simon Edvinsson, they got named to the AHL All-Star game that's coming up. Huge for them. Jonathan Berggren, last year, I think it was, he was the highest scoring player in Griffin's history. Kind of a big deal. Simon Edvinsson looks all the parts of an NHL defenseman already. I think he's kind of the unfortunate victim of a log jam in Detroit, because Detroit went out and they bought probably one or two too many defensemen this year in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, it's great that the Wings have two players who are both good enough to make the AHL All-Star game. It's not the NHL by any means, but it's still relevant to the fact that the American Hockey League is not night and day different than the than the NHL.
Yeah.
That being said, though, I want to ask your guys' opinion on this. We've talked about it before. The Wings defense needs help. I don't think any of us would disagree with that statement. Jonathan Berggren was a point per game player last year. I think he's a point per game player this year in the AHL. I don't know why they're not giving him ice time at the NHL level, but if they're not going to, how would you guys feel about them packaging him with a first round draft pick and going and getting a younger, not like obviously no team's going to trade like a Simon Edvinsson caliber defenseman away, but a younger defenseman who is just about to start hitting that 25, 26 year range on a team who's about to start rebuilding. That way Detroit has a more certified top four defenseman.
I'm going to let David go first because it's his team and I've got some strong opinions. So David, go for it, my man. I want to hear it.
I mean, I love Johnny Burgers. I was really hoping that little stint he had where he scored 2 goals during his little emergency call-up. I'm like, oh, maybe they'll change that emergency part and drop somebody else, but they haven't. I'd love for him to stay, and I don't know. In all reality, I'd love to turn back time and draft Quinn Hughes instead of Zadina now, looking, back, hindsight 2020, But if it means bringing in another caliber defenseman who can help, we got Sider, we got Wallman, we got Ghost Bear and Sherratt, but something's clearly not clicking still. So yeah, I mean, this is going to bring us to another discussion of the Yzer plan and where we're going. And I think Jordan and I talked about this before in last week's episode as well. But I don't know. I like Berggren. I want him to succeed. I want him to succeed here. But if it means trading him, I don't know. What Jordan, where are you going with this?
I just think with Detroit's lack of rebuild luck in terms of getting those game-changing, game-breaking players, eventually Steve Yzerman, I think, does kind of have to make his own luck. I think it's one of those things where the draft hasn't done him any favors, and if it's not going to happen for him, he's got to do it himself. And Steve's gone on record saying that this team's not going to win because one or two superstars carry this club. It's going to have to be a team effort. But if you can get a very young defenseman who's 23, 24 years old, who's proven he can be a top 4 guy, and it means you've got to trade I wouldn't even say a prospect at this point, but a player in your prospect pool who is already a certified middle 6 guy and a first-round draft pick, I think you do it. Because at this point, Detroit's first-round draft picks, they're going to, at least they're expected to all start being at the bottom half of the first round moving forward. And it gets harder and harder to find difference makers after that. And so I almost feel like they should be looking at the point where let's trade for a sure thing here, as opposed to maybe we hit a bust or hit a boom.
So who you trading for, Jordan? Who's in your trade board?
Yeah, I'm curious. This is actually something I'm really curious about as I'm like looking for defensemen between the ages of 21 and 24 that are hitting a peak.
I mean, I know he's had injury problems, and I know he just got traded to Philly, but if you'd asked me beforehand, I would have actually said Jamie Drysdale. I know he's had injury problems, but man, could you imagine a young guy of his caliber when he turns 25 and like he's finally got his health in order?
Phenomenal.
That would be such a great group of Sider, Drysdale, Edvinsson, and then whoever their fourth player is, if it's Jake Wallman or somebody else from the free agency market.
I mean, that's
Buffalo not a bad top four.
Buffalo is not, doing well right now. They got a couple really good defensive players there we could steal from.
I mean, that's exactly, again, you've got to find a team that has a space and a need for Berggren, that also has an expendable 21 to 24-year-old defenseman that's getting into there and developing and like going to step in and play second pairing minutes. Buffalo's got a glut of those defensemen. I think you could look at realistically Ottawa, that has underperformed, could use more help up front and could maybe afford getting rid of a younger defenseman. Honestly, the New York Rangers, Brandon Schneider was a first-round pick in 2020. He's playing on their third line right now, but like they're stacked up front with Fox, with Trouba, with Keandre Miller, like Ryan Lindgren. Like they could afford to move Schneider, and he's like 21. You could move him over and trade that. I guess my thoughts, again, the reason you're not playing Berggren is because you've been signing multiple free agents the last two off seasons, and you've got a bunch of veterans in there. There's no room for him. I remember asking this at the start of the year, like, hey, I don't really see a space for Berggren, and I didn't see a space for Foligno at the time, but like Foligno he's older, he's running out of time, and he's earned that spot that he did. Berggren doesn't have that, and I don't see a spot in the next 2 years. Other new players are coming in. There isn't a spot for him. He is your expendable player. And then my thought with, again, bringing in another defenseman is a great idea, but you also have to move Sherratt. Yeah, I think that's the only, again, because what good is bringing in another defenseman if there's no space for him, and you've already got 2 or 3 guys that are the exact same caliber of player realistically. You got to move somebody, and if you're Yzerman and you can move Sherratt for even a 4th round pick, you got to get rid of that contract. He's your weak link. He's expensive. Then you can flip Berggren in a 1st or something like that for a quality young defenseman. I think that's got to be your move.
The only reason I say it right now is because I looked at Detroit's their cap situation. Their buyout spots are about to open back up, and you could, in theory, buy out Ben Sherratt, and you could open a roster spot.
How many years are left on his contract though? Because that would double.
After this year, he'll have 2 years left, so he'd be on buyout for 4 years.
I hate buyouts unless you absolutely have to. Like, again, you guys worship the wheeling and dealing of Yzerman. Isn't he the guy that whenever he gets on the phone, he can flip Ben Sherratt for,
Rasmus Dahlin,
Yeah, exactly. Now, I do want to put out there, Philip Hronek is probably available. He's, going into free agency. You could trade Berggren in a 1st for Philip Hronek.
See, the problem is Vancouver's hot right now, and
he's
part of the reason they're hot.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder what's going to happen to him in free agency. Not a topic for right now, but like fascinating question, right?
I'm happy for him. I'm happy for the guy.
But yeah, there's no space for Berggren on this team, and right now with Ben Sherratt, Jeff Petrie, Petrie, Justin Hall, Ole Mata. Like, good Lord, man. They're all playing the same
They're all playing bottom
game.
pair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and
Ali
when you get
Mata's the
another
best of those three, in my
I
opinion.
agree with you, but like you've got to get rid of either Sherratt or Petrie. Otherwise, you don't have a space for the new wonder kid to come in.
Exactly.
That's fair, but just it was an idea that I had floating
Oh,
around.
I love
with
it.
him.
But I
Like-
do think it's got to be multiple moves there.
I look forward to the defensive lineups of having a combination of Sider, Wallman, Edvinsson, Sandin Pelika, and whoever else in the future. Like,
Oh yeah, is Wallman still injured for you or?
No,
Wallman's
he just got
okay.
scratched last night. Was
Oh,
all.
is that what it was? Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
They're getting ready for his amazing gritty bobblehead that's coming out to fans for the next game. That
Can't have him injured for that.
I so desperately want that bobblehead.
Yeah,
I
no,
just want
it's
it
a
on my
killer.
desk for my students and be like, look at this. Look at this. All you kids with your gritties. This is the real gritty.
This guy hits the gritty. But no, Jordan, fantastic question. Because, like, you guys have to be constantly thinking right now about what's going to improve this roster right now. And Berggren, I don't know if he's the present, and I don't know if he's the future anymore.
Yeah, he's that weird middle piece of like he could be, but as of right
I think he's
now,
great, but he's a redundancy.
That's
unfortunately.
the issue. It's does he fit management's plan with this club long term?
The Hawks would love him. We'll trade you like Isaac Phillips, which is a legit. He's a great like young defenseman. I think he's going to develop into at
What
least
about
like,
Korchinski?
that's fun. You got fun
All right,
questions.
then I'll make you a deal. All right.
How about the brink
We'll
it?
trade-
Yeah.
We'll trade you Jonathan Berggren and Ben Sherratt with half retained, and in exchange, you guys give us Connor Murphy.
I would make that deal in a heartbeat. I love Murph, and I think that he would actually provide you with more stability than you've got now. But I think that, and again, fine to take an older defenseman, like retain some set, like that's totally fine with me. I like that deal. I think Murphy would be good for you.
You
And
guys
I-
get a proven set for your rebuild. You get rid of Murphy because Murphy's only got 1 year after this year, right?
How old is Murphy?
30?
We don't need older.
Yeah, but
That's the
he's a
problem.
holdover, and like he's taking. You're subtracting.
We have a lot of holdovers, though.
Yeah, but you're subtracting 1 year of Ben Sherratt's holdover, basically.
Yeah, and you're getting a better player than Ben Sherratt.
Yeah.
Is that worth giving up Berggren for?
You're going to have
if
to
Berggren's
give him.
not going to hang around anyway.
Yeah,
Honestly,
I guess.
I would argue that you might not even need to retain 50%. Maybe if you retain 25% of Sherratt's salary, because frankly, we're fine with that.
But anyway, it's just a
Yeah,
hypothetical.
no,
We'll keep moving on.
I love that. I love that deal, frankly. But yeah, go ahead.
We'll move on to the Hawks here in just a second. But first, we got to talk about tonight's sponsor for the show, and that's
We sure
DraftKings
do.
Sportsbook. If you've never really checked out DraftKings, it's a place to bet on all things sports. I mean, just particularly tonight as we're recording this, the NFL's got playoff games going on. So, like the Lions play in about 2.5 hours, so you could bet on the Lions game tonight. You could bet on all sorts of stuff like who the winner is, who the touchdowns are going to be, how many rushing. I think you can even bet on like how many yards are going to be rushed for, stuff like that. Like there's all sorts of stuff like that you can bet on DraftKings. I mean, they're going to play the Wings are going to play the Leafs tonight, for example. You can bet on that game. But yeah, check out DraftKings. They're our sponsor for tonight's show. You can download the DraftKings Sportsbook app with code THPN. New customers, you can bet just $5 on the NHL, and you get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN. The crown is yours. If you have a gambling problem, you can call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help's available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-777-77 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resorts in Kansas. You have to be 21 or older, age varying by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey. for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. NHL and the NHL Shield logo are registered trademarks by the National Hockey League. Copyright 2024 NHL, all rights reserved. So let's go ahead and move on to the Hawks, Tim, because the Hawks, you guys had a couple important things happen for the next, I would say, 2 months worth of hockey for you guys. Obviously, you've got Bedard's injury, Foligno's out, the extension for Foligno, Seth Jones coming off IR, Luke Richardson's comments about really like letting players grow. And also, you guys had a pretty good week for your prospects. So let's jump into these, Tim. Which one do you want to tackle first?
Boy, howdy. Where do I choose? I mean, I might just, again, I should say everything that we're breaking down is all under the bubble of the status of the rebuild realistically, because I think we're all very well aware this team is bad. We have won once in 2024 so far. Without Bedard, we have very little in the world of firepower or just skill in general. But there's a lot of really positive moments for growth, development, and for the future. One thing that's really, really exciting is the fact that we got Seth Jones off of injured reserve and back on the ice with the team. Like, I cannot state enough. I know Jones is a polarizing character with the Hawks, but like he's our best defenseman. Well, I think he's our second best defenseman. I think Alex Vlasic is our best defenseman, actually, which is phenomenal and was not expected going into this year. But Jones and Vlasic is our best pairing. And Jones, with his leadership, with his, again, veteran presence, he is a huge presence back on the ice for us. But with him coming back, that means that the defense gets to get shaken up a little bit. We saw Jared Tenorti benched last night. And what's really cool to me is Richardson after the game discussing why Tenorti was benched. Because he talked about, you know what? We love Tenorti, love his game. That said, with Jones back, we have also had a lot of young defensemen that have been earning more playing time, and we need to get a sense of who we've got. The priority is finally shifting to a sense of give the young guys playing time. There's always tried to be a balance when possible of, well, let's match a veteran with a rookie. Let's make sure that, we don't have too many rookies on any given night. I think that mindset now, especially with Bedard out and understanding that this year is a punt, like, let's get more young guys in there. And it's really cool to hear Richardson talk about, like, Louis Crevier's had a couple of really cool games and learned a lot. Isaac Phillips has shown that he's got more in the tank. Obviously, Vlasic and Korchinski have been great. Obviously they're learning from mistakes. They're developing. Like, this is really exciting. And that shift in mentality, especially on the young defense, I think that's going to be something we see for the rest of this year as a common refrain. So don't expect stellar defensive metrics this year, but do be on the lookout for a lot of individual plays, a lot of, small victories, and seeing a defenseman that maybe had a lapse in judgment, but was able to skate back and cover their guys still. That's what we're going to be looking for on defense.
That's what you should be looking for, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're sort of in a totally opposite side of where the Red Wings are with their defense, where it's a lot of veteran guys. Yeah, please.
I want to. I think I was talking to you guys about this week, but
yeah,
I really don't think that the Hawks are as far up from being competitive as people think they are. I mean, we were talking about it before the show, but I think that realistically the Hawks, quote unquote, won the 2022 entry draft. Kevin Korchinski looks. I mean, yes, he's still very raw, but he's
hanging in the NHL as an offensive defenseman. Yeah.
And he's got all the tools to be a number one. He's not going to be like a superstar shutdown defenseman guy, but he can be that offensive punch from the blue line who can play competent defense. And this was a couple months ago, granted, but he's already had some great shifts on the penalty kill where he's able to predict where players are going to be at before he catches the puck as it's coming into his zone.
His ability
Stuff
to
like
read the game. Yeah.
yes, being able to read and predict that. When you look at all of the all-time great defensemen, though, at least from the past 20 years, all of them can do it. They can all read and predict where plays are going. That's really what sets the great defensemen apart from just the good ones.
Well, and I was even again, you talked about him not being, maybe he's not going to be that shut down, like stud defenseman on that end. But Alex Vlasic is showing, like, he's comparing metrics to Nicholas Hjalmarsson, except his stretch pass, like his ability to do like a stretch pass is phenomenal. But this is a guy that is using his body, is disrupting plays, is shutting things down in his side of the ice. Like, between him and Korchinski, I'm absolutely jazzed about the status of, hey, that's the future of hockey. Don't you silence the next generation, David. But no, with Vlasic and Korchinski specifically, I'm really excited. And I know Louis Crevier is going back down to Rockford. He's going to go back down and be a stud top 4 defenseman in Rockford, taking back what he's learned in the NHL this year. But speaking of defensemen, actually, and at the AHL, Ethan Del Mastro, our fourth round pick a couple years back, he's Rockford's AHL All-Star. So not just in the NHL, but in the AHL, we have some massive developing prospects for defense, which is super exciting. Go ahead. Were you going to say something, Jordan?
No. I was gonna just ask, like,
please.
Obviously, DeMastro seems like a steal for you guys. I mean,
yeah, seriously.
Even if he just pans out as a bottom 4 defenseman for a was it a 3rd or 4th round draft pick?
He was like a 4th round pick.
That's still very good. Like most 3rd rounders don't even make it to the NHL.
That's exactly my thing. If we can hit again, we were talking about this a little bit before the show, talking about like some of the picks that the New York Rangers have had in the last couple of years with like 1st and 2nd overall picks. Obviously, you need those picks to hit your 1st rounders, ideally a couple of your 2nd rounders. You need those to hit. But a team that can have 3rd, 4th, 5th, you guys know all too well, 7th round picks. If you can have some of them hit, that's when you develop a championship team. That's Nicholas Hjalmarsson was a 4th or 5th round pick. Like, you need people all across the draft to hit. And that's why, you take a swing on some guys saying, he might not be good right now, but like, I think he's got potential. That's where we're at right now. That said, on the other side of the spectrum, completely ignoring prospects for a second, we have an extension to talk about. And that extension is the true veteran, the grizzled old man of the Hawks. Nick Foligno has signed a 2-year extension, $4.5 million a year. This, Jordan, David, I cannot stress enough how fantastic this is, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I know people are freaking out a little bit, like, they're overpaying for an old man. Like, yeah, of course we are. We need to hit the cap floor still. That's a 2-year deal that's going to expire when Bedard and Korchinski's next contract kicks. Like, this is a perfect timeline of signing Foligno. And my God, guys, he chips in a little bit off. He chips in a little bit offensively. He's defensively minded. So he's up and down the lineup in the ice and off the ice. This man is the voice of the locker room. I love Foligno.
4.5 for Foligno. I know people are like, that's not worth the money. In a vacuum, yes, you're correct. He's not worth 4.5. But to a team that's rebuilding, that is not even close to cap crunched, 4.5 for what is, I mean, obviously, I don't think they're going to throw the C on him if he's only going to be here for 2 years. But a guy who is acting like a captain for your locker room.
Yeah.
I don't think that's that insane, especially given he's been around the NHL for over a decade.
The man has seen it all. And like the fact that he's willing to sign a 2-year extension here, he's never won a cup. Like the fact that he's not out chasing a cup as like a bottom 6 guy, just trying to add a little, like Thornton did at the end of his career. the fact that he's like, no, I believe in what we're fighting for here. I've never been someone that goes and just tries to chase glory. Like, I want to work hard and earn it. Like, this team does not have an identity yet. Right now, this team's identity is tank, rebuild, Bedard. And Foligno is the one. I remember him talking about the hit on Bedard that knocked him out. And he talked about, like, hey, you know what? I don't think the guy's a dirty player. I think he's a clean player. You can argue the hit was clean. This guy did his job. I did my job, standing up for Bedard, letting him know that he's taken care of, that we see him. Like, dude, that's the right mindset. Like, this team is fighting for an identity, and Nick Foligno is helping establish that. That's worth 4.5 mil to me right now for a team that doesn't care about money. Yeah, this is exactly what we should be doing.
The other thing is, I mean, just realistically speaking,
There we
whose
go.
spot is Nick Foligno blocking? Nobody's. Nick Foligno isn't blocking anybody in your prospect pipeline from coming up to this club.
No.
And if at any point in the next 2 years he is, either you guys had a prospect who absolutely blew the doors off and came out of nowhere, which, again, perfectly fine. Because
great problem to have.
Yeah, great problem. And even so, even if you did, and you really need the roster spot that bad, which again, I don't think you will, you could still bury his contract if you need be. Because how many more years does Seabrook have on the IR contract?
Seabrook's gone. Seabrook's
is he
on.
gone?
Well,
Is he
he's
gone?
on Tampa. We traded him to
Okay.
Tampa, so we don't have him.
But that's the thing is, like, you guys aren't
That's
even
crazy.
close to the cap strapped. Like, there's
No, not at
no reason
all.
to be upset about this. It's a short-term deal for a leader for your locker room while players are developing.
Well, and realistically, like, we have other guys. If somebody blew the doors off, and if Frank Nazar came in at the end of this year and was like, "Hey, it's time for me," like, oh, okay, like, we said, Rem Pitlick is gonna stop him. Like, I don't think Taylor Radish is worth stopping him. Like,
No.
there's been so many opportunities this year for young guys to step up and show what they can do, and like, it definitely highlights to me that a lot of these guys are not going to be around for the competing again when we're actually actively working for a Stanley Cup. I just don't see it. Again, Zach Sanford, cool, he's going to be gone. Boris Kachuk, get him out of here. I don't care. Like, Reese Johnson, he's not going to block Frank Nazar.
Nope.
Nick Foligno, there are so many other people that could go before Foligno. I feel great about it, Frank. And it's cool that we're in a position now that we're actually looking to build and develop that culture as opposed to flipping people.
Yeah. I mean, it's you can't tank forever. Like, eventually you become a perpetual rebuilder.
So Arizona, Buffalo,
Edmonton for a very long time.
and arguably still Edmonton. Like,
Edmonton is so hot and cold. That's the other thing. Like,
well, again, we talked about it with New York. Like, they got Lafreniere and Kako. Like, they were counting on at least one of them to be a generational franchise talent. They're both awesome players. They're both great complementary pieces, but like, they have not still developed into somebody that's going to be driving your franchise. Like, you can continue to be a rebuilding team for a long time. It's terrifying, actually, when you think about it.
It is, and like, the Hawks are making sure they don't become one of those franchises. That's important.
That's 100% it. Again, even with like Foligno signing, like, hey, we should re-sign Jason Dickinson, maybe even Pete Mrazek, and Davidson saying, you know what, we might actually, like, those are guys we would have flipped in the past. Now we might keep them. But yeah, in that same mindset, again, we've got the young, we've got the old, we've got the people in between. But finally, I just wanted to hit on like some of the rest of our prospects for a second. Like, we've been our prospects across the pool, whether it's college, whether it's the US team, whether it's the major junior leagues. it was a great weekend, to say the least, for a lot of our players. Like, we had 9 players total 7 goals and 12 assists on Friday. On Friday night, we had 7 goals and 12 assists from 9 of our players. Frank Nazer leading the way with 2 goals and 3 assists. Sam Renzel and Nick Lardis each had 3 assists. Like, Gavin Hayes is chipping in with his new team, a couple of goals. Oliver Moore, Landon Slager, Tage Harding. Like, these are names that people are going to know in a few years if you don't already. And like, it's so cool to see. I don't know if you guys felt this, but like, or if you felt it for the Wings during your rebuilding years, but like, there were so many years between 2015 and like 2020 that I did not hear about any of our prospects. And like, I'm looking for it, and nothing exciting is happening with our prospects. From 2021 roughly to now, all of a sudden I'm like constantly staying in tune to what's going on in the CHL, in college. Like, it's thrilling to be able to watch our prospects right now.
Well, the thing is when you're trying to win now, you're not really focusing on development. You're not really focusing on the guys coming through your pipeline. It is very much about the main
What can you
club.
do for me right now?
Yeah, like, Can you help us take advantage of what we have right now?
And if they're prospects, sometimes you trade them to get those pieces for the right now, which teams like the Wings and Boston and others have done. I mean, Boston traded away a bunch of picks to us for Bertuzzi to win right now, and he left after the one season.
I mean, and that works sometimes. Again,
sometimes
the Hawks picking up Vermette for a first was like, hey, cool, this is exactly what we needed. It paid off. Like, and then sometimes you get, Weiss and Fleischman and nothing happens, and you gave up Philippe Deneau.
Pittsburgh, the Penguins in 2008 trading for Hossa, and Hossa helping carry them to the Cup final, and lost.
Worth the risk sometimes. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's all risk analysis.
Who was it? Was it Brandon Montour did it with the Panthers last year? Went to the finals.
Corey Perry, before he went to the Blackhawks, was like a team that would just play on these contending teams.
Yeah. Corey Perry brought a lot of teams into the finals, and turns out we were his final. I don't know. All jokes aside, he's apparently able to play in the league again. I wouldn't that seems like such a
gamble.
Like, you do not want to sign that right now. I would at least wait.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right. Ask the Bruins how that worked out with that one player. Well, yeah, exactly. Oh boy. Again, not what we're talking about. But like, the Hawks are to wrap up the Hawks. What a really cool era to be in, where we've got some really grizzled veterans and a lot of just green kids that are hungry. That's really, really cool. And we've got a couple of people in the middle that are like, hey, I'd love to still be here in like 2-3 years. That'd be pretty cool, right? We're going to be a totally different team in like 2 or 3 years.
Oh, yeah.
In 2 or 3 years, I think the Hawks will be about where the Wings are at right now.
I agree.
You're going to be just on that cusp of like getting into the playoffs. Like, you're going to be where we're at now, where it's like, man, if everything goes according to plan, we're going to be right there hanging with everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
God, that's exciting.
If you're fine with it, Tim, we'll go ahead and transfer out of the Wings and the Hawks talk.
Yeah, just don't make me talk about like how our games went the last couple games.
There's only really one piece of news that I want to talk about this week, and we kind of talked about it already in regards to like Jamie Drysdale, but he got traded to the Flyers in exchange for Gauthier, right? That's how I say his name? Yeah, Cutter Gauthier. Do I understand why Philly fans are mad that, at least from everything that I've read, he basically ghosted management and didn't return calls, stuff like that? Yeah, I get why you're mad. And I get that you're like, well, our organization spent, a top 10 pick on this guy. I get it. You're upset. But that being said, don't slander the kid in the press. Don't hate on the kid because he didn't want to play for your club. Special guest.
Hey!
Yeah, future netminder, Max. That's his favorite position when we're playing the knee hockey. And I looked up goalie pads, and I'm like, nope, let's pick something different.
Yeah, what if we
When are we
waited
gonna play
for,
hockey?
We'll play hockey later, okay?
No.
Go.
I don't want him. Don't show me.
David, throw him in net, man. Goalie is a coveted position.
future Tendy?
He's making kick saves on me when I'm getting clappers in there with this thing, and I'm just like, gosh, he's
Clapping
got good.
bombs, sniping at your kid's head. What's the matter?
He's got to
with
be
you?
ready. He's got to be ready.
Did you duck that one?
Oh my
And
god.
he goes, Dad, your skills are dusty. And I go, oh.
Dusty old man, that's what you are. Oh, that's awesome. The future is now. But yeah, no, I understand, Jordan, what you're with, like, yeah, Philly. I get it. I would be upset too if I was a Philly fan, but like, it's absolutely busted how I don't like that their management and their ownership came out in Philly and was like, Philly remembers, Philly's a city that, oh, you better brace yourself. And then Philly fans are like, hey, I'm going to send a bunch of like death threats to you. Like, really
we beat up Santa in our city.
Yeah, like, I don't know. It's a really gross, and like, yeah, he did sort of ghost management, but like, he also talked about the reasons that like he decided he didn't want to sign. Like, he changed his mind. I get that he confirmed he wanted to be a Flyer, and then the last 2 years, I wouldn't have wanted to be a Flyer either. Like, this is the team that, wasn't it Eric Lindros famously refused to sign with the Nordiques and got traded to Philly?
Yeah.
Like, it's a wild. It goes back to forgetting that players are human beings that have agency, and like, a kid doesn't owe anything to the team that drafted him.
No.
Yep.
Kevin Hayes dipped out and never signed with us. Like, I don't know, that happens. He could have just gone through the rest of college and not sign. At least he told Philly he didn't want to sign, and they traded him and got somebody.
And that's not like, he's not the first kid to do this either. Adam Fox did it. Like,
and we love Adam Fox, but nobody talks about that anymore.
Nope.
Like I said,
Philly fans will ignore it unless it happens to them.
Exactly. No, it's an unfortunate thing. And again, I don't want to like isolate any fan base on this podcast, but also, if you're a Philly fan, why are you watching this Played podcast? But like,
aren't you the guy that always dunks on Buffalo the chance he gets?
Yeah, no, you're right. You know what? Screw Philly. It's just really unfortunate. And like, this is coming from a Chicago fan that just got really embarrassed by the way Chicago fans reacted at the Bulls Ring of Honor ceremony. We booed Jerry Krause's like wife. Like, what the hell is wrong with you all? But like, take that and then think about sending death threats to a teenager. It's just scumbag behavior. I don't like it.
I don't like it either. And like I said, like, I get fans are frustrated. I get that you're upset with what happened. If this happened with the Wings, I'd be upset too.
Yeah.
But just because you're upset does not excuse this behavior. That if you're upset about it, you can be upset, and then you do like some in-looking and say, okay, what did our management do that made it so like a player of this caliber doesn't want to come here, and how can it be changed? Those are the questions you should be asking.
Yep. I mean, I love the way, honestly, I don't say this all the time, I love the way Torts handled it. Because, you know, he's like, you know what? What do you think of Cutter? He's like, I don't know him. Like, I don't know him from a hole in the wall. Like, I never talked to him. Like, I'm excited about Jamie Drysdale because he's coming here. That's what I want to talk about. And then they were like, after one practice, what are your thoughts with him? He's like, I don't know. Let the kid play. He's like, what are you talking about? Like, and he also ripped apart the reporter that said Kevin Hayes had something to do with Cutter deciding not to sign. He's like, are you the guy that gave Kevin a hard time? He goes, Kevin and I had disagreements. We did not see eye to eye. He's a good man. Like, Torts is so weird because there's times that I'm like, get out of the league, old man. And then there's times where I'm like, God, I love this guy. I'd run through a wall for him.
But no,
that
that
works
was
perfectly.
That was the only piece of league news I felt like was worth talking about this week.
Okay.
We haven't talked about league news in a while, but I did think that one was worth talking about because
Oh yeah.
it's not very often we see stuff like this happen. We can move on to the flashback and flash forward segments of the show. We started with the Wings already. What's up?
We don't need to do that. I see
The
no
Blackhawks
reason
did
to
not
have to
play
talk
any
about
games
this.
week. The Blackhawks played no games this week.
Go ahead if you must, Jordan.
So we kind of already talked about the past week for the Wings. Obviously, the California road trip, the Wings
Was a success.
It was a great success.
Great success.
They look like they've gotten back on their rhythm. But, man, the Edmonton game was very rough.
Should have been a win. There was a weird feeling when feeling when McDavid scored that goal. It was like, but fantasy points.
Yeah. No, overall, the Wings had a good week this past week. Like I said, just the road trip was a success for them. Jeez, Pete, I can't speak. I mean, Tim, you mentioned the Hawks didn't have any games. Now, is that because they just
didn't win any games?
I don't think the Hawks knew they had games because we did bad. We lost. We lost all our games this week. I'm trying to think. So the last podcast was January 7th, where we won against the Flames during that podcast, it looks like. Since then, we lost to the Oilers 2-1, which frankly I'll consider a win because we
kept it close.
Yeah, exactly. The Jets we lost to 2-1, and so I'm gonna take that as a win too because we kept it close. And we lost to the Stars 3-1. And you know what? It wasn't a blowout. It wasn't 8-1 or 4-1 or 3-0 like we had the week before. So like, I guess we lost all 3 games, but in comparison, we had a great week.
So what you're saying is trademarked by our podcast, little victories.
That's all I've got at this point, my friend. It's bleak. It's negative 9 degrees in Chicago right now, and the Hawks aren't good. This is where I'm at.
So Tim, with that little victories feeling, who is your player of the week then? If you had one.
I mean, frankly, I was going to give it. I'm between Alex Vlasic just because he's been far and away, especially with all the injuries and like the rotations we've had. This kid's been a freak. He's been far and away our best defenseman and put in ridiculously tough situations. But I think, I'm going to say Alex Vlasic, and I'm going to take Nick's vote since he's not here, and I'm going to say Pete Mrazek because every game is 2-1, 2-1, 3-1. That's your goaltender saving your life. I mean, 2-1 against McDavid and Draisaitl, that's a Christmas miracle, just a little bit late. So it's Mrazek and it's Vlasic.
Okay.
And then we light a match and move forward.
I mean, for me, I've got to go with Alex Lyon. He put on an absolute clinic this week. Just killer saves in the Edmonton game. Looked really good last night overall versus LA. Hasn't really had a bad game the past.
Since he's come back from his injury,
he hasn't really had a bad game.
It's funny, Jordan. We had the same pick. I was also going to pick Alex Lyon. I think he has played very stellar. He's kept us in a lot of these games. And also, he's a weird dude in a funny way. Like I like him a lot. No, there was like a video of him like in the locker room getting ready for the game, like cutting up part of his jersey and just staring at the camera as he's cutting. Man. And I'm like, goalies are weird, man, and I love it. I'm here for it.
Careful, your kid's gonna be a goalie.
There's a big step up from a tiny foam light ball to a puck.
I don't want to take a puck off the dome.
No, me either.
But no, good week overall for the Wings. Moving forward though with the schedule, just really quick, the Wings have 4 games this week if you count the game on Sunday that they're going to have next week. They play against the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight. They play against the Panthers on Wednesday, the Hurricanes on Friday, and then the Lightning on Sunday. So realistically, 4 games before our next show. I think they can beat the Leafs tonight. I think the Panthers, they're probably going to lose to the Panthers. I think they can beat the Canes if they can outscore their defensive group. And then, honestly, Tampa hasn't looked like the Tampa of old. I think we can take...
Because they are old.
They are
they're
getting
an
older.
Old bunch.
But I think the Wings can take 3 out of these 4 games.
I could see us winning 2 to 3 of these games as well. I think the Canes will be the the Panthers will be the toughest matchup. We can win tonight if we can score more goals than James Reimer gives up, because he loves giving up goals.
That'd be good, yeah.
But yeah, I agree, Jordan. I think we can win 2 or 3 of these games.
I mean, Tim, what's coming up this week for the Hawks?
Well, Tuesday we play the Sharks. Wednesday we play the Sabres. Friday we play the Islanders. Listen, the Sharks are the only team I think in the league that's worse than us. So I need something. I need to hold on to some shred of hope. So I think that we beat. I'm going to say I think we beat the Sharks. My heart's not in it, but I need to say that. I think we lose to the Sabres and the Islanders. But you know what? No. I'm an optimist. I'm a tragic optimist. I think we take the Sabres to overtime. We lose, but we get a point. I don't think we beat the Islanders.
Little victory.
I'll take it.
It's good stuff.
Does anybody have anything else they want to talk about before we close the show out?
Nope.
I think Jason Dickinson should be the All-Star with Bedard out. And so does Nick. So, frankly, he's the only other guy on our team that knows how to score, which is Buck Wild, since Vancouver paid a second to take his contract like a year and a half ago. But he's got like 14 goals this year. The guy's totally revamped his game. It's remarkable. That's all I got to say. And he's earned it. Yeah. And he's like 28. Like, he's not young. He's not a rookie, but like he's not old.
Yeah, like he's not a guy he's out of the league in the next 2 years.
And it's funny, we picked it when we got him from Vancouver. I thought he was going to be like a Glendening type, honestly. But showing his offensive upside, like, how cool is that for a guy to be like, yeah, I don't know, I just keep playing the game my way and like things are working now. Like, that's rad. How cool for a guy like that could get the opportunity to be an all-star if that was something that happened.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
The John Scott moment.
Yeah, exactly. Except I love John Scott to death. He's a hero, but like Jason Dickinson's actually like pretty good at hockey.
Yeah, he's got some real skills.
But he's just like an everyman. Yeah, he's like an everyman guy that like shows up, punches in, chips in his couple of goals a year. Like, that's not a guy that ever gets acknowledged and rewarded. Like, I don't know. I'm rooting for him with Bedard out.
Okay. I think that's going to be it for our show tonight. As always, thank you everybody who tunes in and checks the show out. You really appreciate it. It helps the show grow. If you want to get in contact with us, we are all over the internet sphere. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You can find the show on Apple Podcasts. I think we're on SoundCloud still. We're obviously on Facebook. That's where we host these live shows every week. Feel free to give us like, follow, share, whatever the social media currency is on the choice you put on us on. And also, feel free to reach out to us with any sort of like critique, feedback of the show, stuff like that. It really does help us make a better show for you guys. And also, check out the Hockey Podcast Network. I mean, obviously, we're a Wings and Hawks show, but if there's another team around the NHL that you follow, chances are they've got you covered with content for that club. So, like, if you're a fan of, Anaheim or San Jose, they have shows on the Hockey Podcast Network. Check them out. And also, again, check out our DraftKings Sportsbook, who is our host sponsor for the night. Check them out as well. Again, that's code THTN when you sign up with them.
Speaking of Hockey Podcast Network, Terry Ryan. You guys see he's coming back to hockey?
Yeah, he's making his professional
after coming back for Shoresy. He's like, Shoresy was something. I'll come back for this now.
Yeah, it's the Newfoundland. I I forget the name, but it's Newfoundland's ECHL team.
Yeah.
He's like 47. He's going to be doing his professional comeback. Like, how sick is that?
Good for you, Terry.
Dude, I love it.
I
Yeah,
guess
great little
playing
club, dude.
playing hockey in Shoresy motivated me to like come back and play hockey.
Gotta
for
let
real.
him know you're out there.
Yep.
I forgot to mention that. That is a fun little tidbit. But yeah, that's it for our show tonight. Like I said, everybody, thank you for checking us out. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you guys back here next time on another edition of the Stick Blade Podcast. But in the meantime, stay safe, take care of each other, take care of yourselves. And we'll catch you back here for another episode next week. You guys take it easy.